Lights.
Hello and welcome to WP Roundtable. Kyle is making a fool of himself over there, so we'll just jump right into it.
I'll go next. I'm Kellen Mace. I'm a freelance developer on the east side of Michigan. Glad to be on tonight with a great guest.
Hi guys, I'm Kyle, and I'm glad to be on the show today as well for episode 44, WP Roundtable. This is awesome, and I'm really excited to have a very special guest on with us today, Patrick Rauland. He is the product manager for WooCommerce over at WooThemes, which is really, really cool because WooCommerce is basically amazing and is taking over the world. So he's kind of the guy who is the man behind the vision, behind the product, and moving that forward. So, Patrick, why don't you tell us just a little bit about who you are, what you do, whatever I didn't already say, or correct what I got wrong.
I think you got it mostly right. My name is Patrick Rauland. Yeah, I work for WooThemes. I've actually done a lot of jobs there, so I kind of started at the bottom and worked my way up. And while I do have some, I do a lot of the planning for WooCommerce, I work with a great team, and that's what kind of that's what makes it a great product in the end, is having an awesome team around me.
Sweet. Okay, so before we get to our questions, because we got tons and tons of questions for Patrick, we want to know all about Patrick, so does the rest of the world. We're going to talk about our quick picks of the week. This is a segment we do at the beginning of every episode where we talk about what is interesting to us or that we've encountered in the past 7 days. So for me, my pick of the week is the WooCommerce Cookbook, published by our guest, Patrick Rauland, and available for sale today. For the first time ever. Patrick's been working on this tirelessly for months, and this is his first published work, I think, and it's available on pactpub.com, pactpub.com, or we'll drop a link in the show notes. And Patrick has a coupon, I think, for today and tomorrow. I don't know if you want to share that or not. It's up to you.
Yep, I can totally share that. It is Woo30.
Woo30, WOO30, for a discount on the product. I definitely think you guys should check it out. I've heard Patrick talk a lot about the book. I haven't had a chance to read it yet because it only became for sale today. But it sounds like it is chock full of really, really, really great WooCommerce goodness. So that's my quick pick of the week.
Can I just interrupt and say that I totally had, I didn't push you to say that. I wasn't like, we have to talk about the book.
No, that would have been probably my pick of the week, even if you weren't the guest today.
Awesome. Thank you.
All right.
All right, so I couldn't really think of anything terribly exciting or new, so I stuck with bacon as my thing to go with today. And only because I had several people ask me, why do I have a bunch of meat on these websites that I'm building? So I'm sharing Bacon Ipsum, and you can Google it and find it, and it makes it so much more enjoyable when a client gets a website filled with meaty goodness, and they're confused, and it's entertaining.
Bacon Ipsum, really?
Bacon Ipsum.
Oh, that's okay.
Going in the chat notes now.
Awesome. Thanks,
Nice.
Jason.
I've used that before. One of my other favorites is, what is it? Arrested Ipsum. It's the Arrested Development script over and over in different arrangements or whatever. It's
I love
pretty
that.
great. You can Google Arrested Development Ipsum. I think Arrested Ipsum is what it's called. My pick of the week to dive in next here is a notable, and noteworthy member of the community, Tom McFarland, who does a lot of blogging, and posts pretty influential posts. I would argue, I'm always learning lots of things from following him on Twitter and following his blog posts, etc. He runs Pressware, a shop where he does custom, WordPress sites and a lot of plugin development, especially, and is also the author of the theme Boilerplate. Folks might know him from that. He just open sourced his Maurer theme, which I thought was pretty cool. Maurer is a very lightweight, well-written theme. It's one of the themes you can users can choose on WordPress.com as well. And he just made the decision. Prior to that, it was open source. It was GPL, but it was behind a paywall. So you had to pay money to even see the code or review it or contribute to it. But he's now put it on GitHub for the world to see and open sourced it. And this way it's easier for developers to look at and contribute back to, and etc. So I think it's kind of cool. It's a recent trend of, at least among the folks I've followed, of a lot of themes and plugins going that way, where they're kind of trusting people to not rip them off all the time, but rather contribute things of value to the project. And then they still get lots of business based on selling support and other services, add-ons, whatever that go along with the product. So I thought that was pretty cool. I'm gonna download the theme and check it out myself, at least to review the code and stuff like that, and get some ideas from it. It's a nice simplistic theme. That's what I got. Patrick?
That sounds pretty cool. I went with, so I didn't have any WordPress news, so I went with something that I've kind of been struggling with, is like how to relax, because I've been trying to finish the damn book. So I found this awesome Lego game on the iPad called Lego Marvel Superheroes or something, and you just point at things and you poke them until they die, and then they explode in little Lego bits, and it just makes you feel so good. I had an early Valentine's Day on Friday, so basically all day Saturday, when everyone else is doing Valentine's stuff, I played like 8 hours of Lego, and it was the best thing ever. So it's $5. It's $5 well spent. Try it out.
All right. We'll have to drop a link to that in the whatever where we put links.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks, Patrick.
Or you can do what I did. I just searched Hulk in the iPad apps in the App Store, and that was one of the things that came up because I love the Hulk. So Hulk.
Oh, that's funny. Okay, great app recommendation. Thank you, Patrick. All right, so that's our quick picks of the week. Thank you, everybody. Now let's learn more about Patrick Rauland, if you don't mind. We're going to jump into some questions now. I want to know, Patrick, let's go back a little bit and learn a little bit about your path to your current role. And you can go back as far back as you want, or as you are inclined. And particularly tell us at what point did you first think that you could make a career in the WordPress world?
Boy, that's an intense question. I think I've had 3 web jobs before WooThemes. So I started out at my university doing web stuff for the university, and that was the best thing ever because it counted as like an internship, so I got credits for it, and I got paid, and they gave me lots of time to learn web because they knew I was new at it. Like, so if you're in college, try to find that job because it was awesome. I did some custom PHP MySQL stuff after that. So we used straight PHP MySQL, no content management system. Like we wrote our own. No frameworks, nothing like Cake PHP or CodeIgniter. So I got to learn PHP really, really well that way. Then I did some stuff at an agency, and that's when I started WordPress stuff. So when I moved out of the custom PHP MySQL stuff, that's when I started using WordPress as a framework. And then I think I joined WooThemes after that.
Oh, okay.
And then I think you asked when did I think I could use WordPress. Honestly, it was probably about halfway through the agency because like I did custom CodeIgniter stuff before that too.
Hmm. Okay, so you were kind of forced to use it?
No, actually, I was their first full-time web developer, and I'm like, all the stuff the last guy did was garbage. This is how we're going to do it, and it takes a little bit more time than writing plain HTML and CSS files, but now the content or the client can update their site without emailing us. Before I got there, they were using Adobe Contribute, which, I don't know, 8 years ago was great, but now that we have these things called content management systems, we should use them.
Exactly. Brilliant, brilliant. So, what kind of clients were you guys working with? Just talk a little bit about the projects you got to be involved in. You know, before the agency, during your agency work, and then you went directly to working for WooThemes after that. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. So talk a little bit about the kinds of projects you got to be involved in. What kind of clients were you servicing?
So the cool thing about an agency is that you almost always work with, I mean, an agency charges higher rates, so you're going to get, I don't want to say better clients, but clients that pay more. So we did a lot of higher-end websites, which was a nice change at the time. So we worked with, there was a furniture company, there was like a paper company, there was a company that does like flooring and that type of stuff, and it was actually really, it wasn't anything too, coolest site was a helicopter company, Enstrom Helicopters do you know where that is? It's in the Upper Peninsula.
Oh, Marquette or?
Yes, Marquette. But like that was great because like I had like a little CSS helicopter that I made like fly up when you like hovered over the menu. But it was really good because we took a lot of big companies that had old HTML and CSS websites. Seriously, this was like a couple years ago, and created content management systems so they could write their own pages, write their own posts. I did a couple e-commerce sites, like that furniture website was an e-commerce site.
Wow. So that sounds pretty cool. And then, so after a little while with the agency and doing some of your own projects before, I believe, you took a job with WooThemes. So how did that transition come about? Were you getting involved in the WordPress community at all during that time before joining WooThemes, and how did they even come across your radar as a potential employer?
Good question. So I've always been, like I'm so focused on going to conferences, and that was one of the things that when I was hired at the agency was part of my contract, that I would go to like 2 conferences a year, and that they would, like, to me that's like one of the most important things. So I heard about WordCamps, and going to WordCamp Milwaukee, I think I was invited by Dustin Filippini, who's an awesome guy. I'm sure you know him. He invited me down and told me that it'd be great to meet everyone, and he was really nice and introduced me to a lot of really cool people, and I just dove right into the WordPress world from there. Like I was kind of on the edge before, and after going to my first WordCamp, dove right in, and then I started doing some more just everything WordPress, and then I did some WooCommerce sites, and then I signed up for the WooThemes newsletter, and in the newsletter they said, hey, we're hiring, and you know, it was a change, it was a new position. I wanted to get more into development, so I wanted to get a little bit away from clients who always want you to update their website copy and to tweak the logo and make it bigger, and get into more serious dev stuff, and I thought that was a good chance to do that.
Awesome. So your role at WooThemes when you started was in support ninja.
Yes.
And then you became a WooCommerce developer shortly after?
Correct.
A year after?
Mm-hmm.
And then this past fall, you became the product manager for WooCommerce. So you served at the company in a variety of different roles. So maybe talk to us a little bit about what you did in each role and how you progressed.
Awesome. I started into WooCommerce support. There are other people that do like theme support. I never did do that much. But I did a lot of WooCommerce support for a year, and basically at the time it was like answer roughly this many tickets a day, and you're good to go. So if I log in, and you know WooThemes is totally distributed, right? I mean we're all around the world. I think about a third of our team is in the U.S. And you know I log in, I answer some questions, in the company chat if anyone needs me. And the thing that I think sort of got me into the developer role later down the road is I started blogging. I started blogging before, but it was like once a month. And then when I got into support, I just wanted to keep learning, right? I said like conferences are important for me. I mean, it's all about the learning. So I would read a ticket and go, wow, that's a customization which we don't support. but someone must want to know how to add a contact form to a product page, and then I'll figure out how to do that, and I'll write a little snippet up on my blog, and I just kind of kept doing that until I got really, really comfortable with the code base, so that I moved in, and then when they were looking for more developers, I had a year's worth of blog posts that showed them I knew how to do it.
So now you're the product manager for WooCommerce. So before, were you supporting just the WooCommerce side from the start, or the themes at all?
Yeah, I've always been on the WooCommerce side. So I was WooCommerce support, WooCommerce developer, and now WooCommerce product manager. Apparently, that's all I know. That's not to say though. I mean, so there's a lot of sort of integrations that I watch. So I work closely with Dan, and oh my gosh, I'm forgetting his last name, but he's the product manager for Sensei, our learning management system. And so we talk about how if you have WooCommerce and Sensei installed on your site, you can add a course into your WooCommerce site so that when someone buys the course, they have access to the Sensei course, that type of stuff. But I focus on WooCommerce.
Okay.
Nice. You talked about how you kind of moved up. How is working there? I mean, how does that large distributed company work out for you and as a company?
So one of the things that makes us unique is that we had three co-founders to start, and they were all in different places. So if you read our about page, it was like London, Norway, and South Africa. So like we started distributed, and I think that helped us so much. I think it's really hard to go from being in an office to being distributed unless you try really hard. I mean, so we're built distributed. Everything is in Google Docs. All of our repos are in GitHub. I mean, we're built so that everything can be modular and everything can be checked out by anyone at any point, and it's really easy working for them. I mean, as long as you get your stuff done, you can kind of work whenever you want. So, I mean, unless you have a meeting, right, with someone. But I mean, for the most part, I work when I want to, and as long as I get my stuff done, it's all fine. So in support, you kind of have to do about so many tickets a day. It's not an exact number, and if you don't hit it, you're canned. That it doesn't work. We're not that strict. But as long as we see that you're answering support tickets, or if you're a developer, if you're committing code and commenting on GitHub issues, or in my case, as long as I'm writing up new ideas and evaluating those ideas to see if they have legs, then they're happy about it. Does that answer the question? Did I just kind of go off course there?
Yeah, I think you mostly answered it. My only complimentary question would be, do the people work on teams, like maybe as a developer role, and how does that teamwork flow in that remote environment?
Yeah, that's really good. So we've grown a lot in the last. So I've been working for WooThemes for like a year and 9 months or something like that. We've grown a lot in that time. So even our support now is broken into many teams. So we have a support team, but that's themes and WooCommerce, and then the WooCommerce team is broken into 3 separate teams. That's like shipping and payment gateways and then kind of everything else, just to kind of so that all the shipping people can, those 3 people who work only on or support only shipping plugins can share all their information. The dev team is kind of similar, where we have a core dev team of 3 guys. Oh God. Yep, we have 3 main guys that work on all the extensions, and then they kind of assign them however they want. Basically, someone will own a specific project. So one person will own, WooCommerce pre-orders, and he kind of decides what goes into that and what doesn't.
Very nice, thank you.
Cool. Next, Patrick, I just had a question or two for you about WooCommerce now, diving into that a little bit. What would you say? I read a blog post recently, I think Kyle has read it as well, but it was just relating the popular e-commerce platforms that exist for WordPress and what percent market share, if you will, or users that they had. WooCommerce is just a huge chunk of that, right?
Yeah.
So kudos on that. I can just imagine, if that were me, like pushing out new releases, my finger would be trembling as I hit the button to release it to all these folks, especially with something as sensitive as e-commerce. so I applaud you for that. But I've heard you speak in other places about some of the meticulous testing, unit testing and et cetera that you have to do. And do you do any? On that note, before I get into my main question, I thought of another one. In the meantime, do you release it first to a small percentage of the population? Is there even a way of doing that with your platform before the masses get it?
Yeah, that's a good. So releases are always releases are always stressful because it is e-commerce, and if you break something, someone stops making money, and when they stop making money, they get very upset at you. So we're very, very, very careful about it. There isn't a way with WordPress to pre-release the plugin to 10%. That would be, or even 1%. That would be awesome. So we're on about 400,000 sites. So when we make a release, that means that there are 400,000 ways this could go wrong, and we need to cover our bases as best as possible. I mean, we had, for this latest release, 2.3, which was released last week, we had 3 betas with lots of tweaks and fixes and commits in between those 3 betas, and then we had, I think, just one release candidate, but sometimes we have 2. And basically, we go through those betas and those release candidates with other developers, and then we release it at large. And then when we do that, we take care of we watch the support queues very attentively, and we push out releases right away. So almost every single time, we will release a point release within a day or 2 of the. So right after 2.3 came out, that same day, I think 2.3.1 came out, which, I don't remember the issue, but it was, I know with 2.2, it was one specific host had a specific problem with this one function we wrote, which of course we didn't catch in our testing because we didn't test on that exact host.
Yeah.
And so then we figured out it was this host, we figured out the function that was wrong, and then we fixed it and sent it a point release.
You're a more experienced developer than I am at this stage. Would something, like Vagrant is becoming a popular tool, for a platform as large and as, sensitive as yours, right? And as tied to somebody's bottom line, as you pointed out, or a lot of people's bottom line, I should say. Are there other ways to load up? In Vagrant, could you load up, stacks or whatever that would emulate the top, 10, 15, whatever it is, hosts, and test it in all of them? Or is that so, time and resource intensive, it's not doable or not usable, not worth it?
So right now we're not. That's an awesome question. Right now we're not looking at that, but that is something that's been something on my radar. Is just I want to have a Vagrant install that install WooCommerce test site. It loads all the products, all the things, reset your database, does all this.
Right.
Make beta testing easier, and then we could have so maybe not for every host because we don't know their exact environment. We can load their PHP and their MySQL version. But if they have weird permissions, we can't test that.
True.
But we could test stuff like have a large WooCommerce store with 500,000 products and 100,000 orders, and then try to make a test order, make sure that everything goes through. So and honestly, we're going to be moving there. I think right now we're trying to get unit tests coverage up as high as we can, and as soon as we take care of, get unit test coverage up really high, then we'll start looking at other stuff like that.
Cool. Very cool. What would you say at this stage is WooCommerce's greatest strength compared to some of the other WooCommerce, e-commerce rather, platforms that are out there, and just why it's been so incredibly successful? Was it, largely due to getting in early? Not quite the earliest, but pretty early before some of these popped up. How much of it weight would you put on that versus just being a really great, really robust platform with whatever features you think make it valuable?
So let me first compare it to non-WordPress things. So if you look at something like Shopify, I think Shopify is an awesome solution, and I would point a lot of people to Shopify because it's the right solution for them. I think WooCommerce is really good at when you have an existing WordPress site and you want to add e-commerce functionality onto it, or if you want to own, the process and own your own store and control everything about it, then you can do it that way. I think a lot of So if you just want to sell a couple ebooks or a couple T-shirts, I think Shopify is great. If this is your bottom line in your store, you probably want to have a little bit more control. And if you want to do your newsletter this way and not that way, not the way Shopify does it, then you can find a WordPress plugin that does it, as opposed to something like Shopify, which works really well. You never have to write a line of code, but you can't customize things very easily. So I think that's why WordPress e-commerce is great in general. And then I think WooCommerce wasn't the first, right? WP e-commerce was out way before everyone else. But I think it's one of those things where they came out too early, right? They came out before something like custom post types were around. So they had to write a lot of custom code, and then you accumulate technical debt, right? Which is And is your audience familiar with that term? It's stuff that's hard for you to fix later, right?
Sorry.
Oh. So I think we came out at the right time, and then we also have the right branding that we were and are a trusted source, right? We're not just going to disappear tomorrow. I won't name it, but there was a store that was reselling WooCommerce plugins that recently went under because they didn't do the support that we did. Whereas when you buy or use a plugin from something like a well-known, trusted brand like WooThemes, you know that your e-commerce store, all of the plugins are going to be updated a year from now.
Yeah, awesome.
Wow. That's pretty cool. So tell us about what the hardest technical challenges have been in advancing the WooCommerce platform. I
think the hardest technical stuff is, there's a couple. So I think hosting issues, right? I remember with 2.2, it was like one specific host had a problem with something, and we had no idea, how are we supposed to know that this one host doesn't allow this one function? And it broke everyone's site. Great. So that's really rough. The other thing recently, at the start of 2015, was this EU tax stuff. So the EU has some crazy tax laws that say if you sell a digital good to anyone in Europe, you need to collect taxes on the person based on their tax rate in Europe. So even if I'm selling something in Denver, Colorado, and someone buys my ebook in Luxembourg, I have to know their tax rate and charge them that tax and then file it at the end of the year. It's just such a nightmare for e-commerce stores and vendors and everyone. It was just kind of a giant mess. So
yeah, that sounds awful.
And then certain countries in the EU have extra weird things. So we had to add, in 2.3, we released a geolocation class so that when someone comes to your site, you show them the appropriate cost, and guessing, based on their IP address, guessing which country they're in to show them the right tax, because you have to show them the right tax immediately in certain countries. You can't wait until checkout to show them the tax.
Wow. That's pretty interesting. It is interesting how much the political landscape and the global political landscape can impact just the development of your software.
Mm-hmm.
You want to make what you think is the best software product. You're so heavily influenced by just these just crazy factors, outside the scope of what you would be anticipating.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy, and honestly, I've actually joked with some other e-commerce developers, God, I just wish we didn't deal with taxes and we forced everyone to use a third-party tax service that charges you $30 a month, because it would save us so many bugs. Oh, yeah. Tax? Talk to them, but you can't do that.
Probably. Gosh, I hear it. So I'd love to hear, just piggybacking on that last question, what some of your biggest non-technical challenges have been, now that you're kind of the person with the vision, moving this WooCommerce forward and helping it grow. What other challenges do you experience?
I think we're at a sort of, so I want to use the word feature complete, which means we have so if your car has, 4 wheels, an engine, and a steering wheel, and the radio, and windows, and the moonroof, you're kind of feature complete. There's not much more you can add. And we're at the point now where with 400,000 sites, we have a really good subscriptions plugin, but one or two people want it this way, and one or two people want it this way, and one or two people want it this way, and it's getting really hard to manage all of these feature requests and make software that's good for everyone. Like it's just, it's hard to draw the line in the sand is what it is. Like we can build whatever we want, and we have an awesome development team, we can build it, but it's choosing which features we want that, that make the software good. Was that non-technical enough, or should I go for something else?
Yeah, no, I think that's a great answer, and it's a really interesting answer, really, honestly. It's not like when I think of a potential answer to a question like that, you might talk about, limits to your growth or to the platform that you're on or to your audience or exposure or misconceptions people might have or, dispelling these things like the growing pains WordPress has gone through, being traditionally a blogging platform and kind of having to dispel all of this. And you don't talk about any of those kind of limitations. Like growth isn't an issue. It's managing how to serve everybody appropriately and making those kind of diplomatic choices. And I just think that's super interesting.
Yeah, it's a tough problem. It's my problem, and yeah.
Yeah, it's probably. I feel like that would be. Those behind a lot of other e-commerce platforms would probably have very different answers than your answer. But that's just my guess.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think we're in different places. I mean, as you pointed out earlier, like I think WooCommerce has 80% of the WordPress e-commerce market, which is a lot.
Mm-hmm.
It was something like that, and we're not like we don't need users, we don't need any of that. We just want to. We need to serve all of our. We need to serve our. I don't know, 400,000 sites, and we need to serve them in such a way that as many people as possible are happy without pissing off other people. Like it's about keeping people happy and making better software, but not like it's not about adding tons of features. So
jumping on that, because I think it's also interesting. I'd love to just talk about the future a little bit. So you talk about, and I know I haven't been doing this for a very long time, but WooCommerce, in recent memory, was not the dominant platform and has been on a kind of meteoric rise in popularity. And so its growth arc has been pretty steep in the past 2 years, I guess you would say.
Mm-hmm.
So I would love to hear you kind of share your take on if we extend that chart of the whatever the arc, the little peak, into the future, a year or 2 years, and ask you to draw where you think that line's going to go. Is it going to plateau or descend or get even steeper, or what direction do you anticipate that line going in terms of growth? And I don't know even what metric to use specifically, number of sites, market share, whatever you want.
Yeah. So that's an awesome question, and I've actually just read a really good blog post kind of about not about e-commerce but about WordPress, and I think one of the things that's going to happen, and I'm going to go, let's say 5 years into the future, I think is there's going to be a lot more Shopify's, things that make it easier for people, like a fully automated system for people to sell stuff online, and that like it's kind of like WordPress.com where you just log in, you press a couple buttons, and you have pages and posts and products, right? And it's going to be really easy. And I think what's going to happen is like WooCommerce will lose total percentage, but that's not because we're losing popularity. It's because e-commerce is going to become more and more available to your everyday coffee shop owner that can't pay a developer anything. Like they just want to pay $20 a month and they're happy with their limitations. I think WordPress, WooCommerce, and WordPress in general there's always going to be a need for that custom stuff, so that when someone wants to have a drip campaign built into the newsletter, so when someone clicks on this product, they're signed up for this drip course that sends them 5 emails about the product, and then they finally buy in the last one. That type of stuff, when people actually want to have really nice websites, that is where WooCommerce is going to be, and I think we'll always be there. We'll always, I mean, right now, I think we're doing a pretty good job with things, and I think we're still growing and keeping up with what people want from us. And I think we're going to keep doing that to a really good degree. But I do think like the percentage of the pie will shrink, but not because we're losing popularity, just because there's a whole new section of people entering the market. Does that make sense?
Sure. Yeah. So your percentage of your market share may decrease. That makes sense because just the pool is probably going to be bigger, which I think is absolutely true. As you know, it's taken a number of years for just the business world to get it through their heads that you have to have a website, and the next stage is you have to have e-commerce. You're crazy if you're not selling online. Yeah. So yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
I think one of the things that like has sort of made me feel this way is something like Medium.com, where to sign up for the site, you click sign up, you connect it to your Twitter or Facebook account, which 99% of people have. You write, and then it says new post, title, content, and there's a couple buttons at the bottom for formatting and a publish button. Anyone can post on Medium. It takes no technical expertise to set up. There's no hosting issues. You just write what you want to write, and you're happy. And that's never gonna kill all WordPress blogs. But there's a couple people that just want to write a couple posts a year, and they're happy with Medium. And I think that's going to happen with the e-commerce world.
Right. Thanks, Patrick. Next, we want to hear a little bit about your book. So, can you tell us, what the motivation was to write it at the outset? Is this something you're doing through WooThemes, or that you decided to, do on your own? And describe maybe the ideal person who this is geared toward.
Sure. So I'm doing this on my own time. It's nothing they persuaded me to do, although they're behind me doing it. They think it's a cool idea.
Okay.
I guess I just like pushing myself. So like if I haven't done something, I want to do it, right? Like,
yeah.
I guess writing a book is kind of like skydiving, where it's a challenge, and I love challenges. So I've gone skydiving, I ran a marathon, and I think writing my book is my third challenge. So it's just about pushing myself to do something new. I did blogging for a couple years before this, and now writing a book is kind of like crystallizing your 2 years worth of blog posts and getting other stuff together and putting it all in one little package that you can wrap in a bow, hand it to someone, and they have a very cohesive thing.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome. And I was thinking too. I've heard others say that it can be kind of a springboard to other things, or just to credibility. You can not only point to your position and your role at WooThemes, and your accomplishments there, but you can say, I wrote the book on it, quite literally. Here it is. Here's the Amazon link. Go buy it, right? Not in a bragging way, but in all seriousness, like I think of Lisa Sabin Wilson and Brad Williams, right?
Right.
And they're quick to say, yeah, we really experienced. We wrote the book on development. Check out, here they are, and they really have. So I think that's kind of a cool thing to have on the resume, right?
Yeah. No, there's definitely something about that. I think I really like. Okay, so going back a little bit, I read a blog post by the founder of HubSpot, I think his name was, and he said to try to be more successful, you don't need to worry about blogging strategies or pricing strategies. Just worry about helping more people. And I think this was an attempt for me to try a different medium to get feedback from more people. And I really like that. One of my favorite things is answering blog comments. If one person a week will say, "Thank you, Patrick, so much for this tutorial," it's the best thing ever. So if one or two people read the book and go, "Patrick, this made my WooCommerce build so much easier. You answered all these questions. Thank you so much," it'll all have been worth it.
Cool.
So, can you give us a little bit of idea of what the content of the book is? Maybe two of your favorite chapters or something along those lines that gives somebody a real good idea of what they're going to be getting.
Yeah. So I kind of tried to take it from start to finish. So it starts with the basics of installing the plugin and choosing your language and your currency. So the first chapter is pretty basic. And then I go into all the different ways you can, create your products, because there's a lot of ways that people don't realize. Like, people who are just using WooCommerce for the first time might not realize you can create a product that bills someone every month, which is really cool. So I go through that, and then shipping and orders and taxes, and then there's a lot of sections on sort of customizing the way things look. Like, I have a whole chapter on customizing the product page, and then I have a whole chapter on theming later. And then I have the last chapter just kind of like miscellaneous cool things that you can do with WooCommerce. And the content itself is, every chapter starts with really basic stuff that's basically clicking buttons and installing plugins. And that's probably, like, I'd say 6 out of the 10 sections of each chapter is just really basic. And the last 1 or 2 are kind of like code-based. So everyone can access the first, let's say, 6 sections of each chapter, and the last couple sections will, even if you're not a developer, will give you an idea what you can do with a developer if you wanted to customize something. If you wanted to disable these products for these users but enable them for these users, and then you could, here's 4 lines of code to do that.
And what was the title of your book again?
It is the WooCommerce Cookbook.
And I heard nothing about a chapter for grilled cheese.
I'm sorry that I put it in the itinerary. There's a name for these, like the chapter summary submission that I sent to the publisher, and they turned it down.
Oh man.
Doggone it. That's, I guess, a benefit of self-publishing.
That is
not off limits. So here's a question for you. Now that you've written a book, and you've been working on this for a while, and tell us about your take on the WordPress book ecosphere. Just that whole space of books about WordPress. How would you describe it? Is it kind of like this land of opportunity where it's really, there's not enough supply to meet the demand of willing readers, or is it conversely oversaturated with more books than there are people to read them, or somewhere in between, maybe where there's a lot of redundant topics but a lot of stuff that's still not covered? Just talk about that, books.
Yeah. So if you Google if you search, WooCommerce in the Amazon store, you will find 1 book about WooCommerce. And mine will be the second that has like WooCommerce in the title. There's 1 or 2 that mention it in the book, but it'll be the second book in the Amazon store that has WooCommerce in the title, and I don't think any of the other platforms are mentioned at all. So there's not a single book on Easy Digital Downloads, WP e-commerce, or iThemes Exchange. I mean, there's, of the top 4 WordPress e-commerce things. Sorry, I guess I'm focused on e-commerce, but I mean, there's so much room. I think there's so much room for growth. As I've been preparing this book, I've had so many questions like, hey, are you talking about WooCommerce theming? I'm like, well, I have a chapter on it, and I have this stuff in this chapter about it. And like, that's not enough, sorry. So even with this 1 book, people are like, hey, I really want to know more about just WooCommerce theming. Like, I'm sure someone could come out with an ebook on just a 50-page book just on WooCommerce theming if they wanted to, because so many people have asked me about it. The publisher reached out to me. Like, I don't think the publishers are being like knocked over with a sea of book requests. When they have to reach out to bloggers to write books, that means that there's definitely an opportunity there.
Good answer, yeah, and I think you're spot on. That's the space that we're in. Maybe, and I don't know what you would say about this, but you might agree that maybe the Amazon listing of books doesn't need another getting started with WordPress book necessarily. Maybe they do, but certainly there's opportunities for getting started with a whole lot of kind of subsets of this industry at this point, and WooCommerce being a big one. So lots of opportunity there, basically, especially for these kind of uncharted topics.
Yeah, I think it's kind of like, have you ever read The 4-Hour Workweek, where by Tim Ferriss?
Yeah.
Yes.
There's a point in the book where he talks about potential business ideas, and he just lists like, I don't know, like 50 different things you can do, but it's things you can do to an existing business. So if you say, so if there's a getting started with WordPress book, you could tweak that just a little bit and you'll have a totally different audience. It could be how to build a WordPress site in 30 minutes. And instead of recommending 4 different contact plugins and the pros and cons of each one, you could recommend one contact form plugin. Like, okay, here's a WordPress site, cool, install this one plugin, install this plugin for SEO, install this, hey, you're done. That's a totally different audience than the general get started with WordPress. So you can take even existing ideas and just tweak them.
Great advice. I mean, great, awesome. So we're getting down to just the last few minutes here, so I'm going to ask you the big questions we had left. Let's talk a little bit about, you go to a fair number of conferences. That's where we first met. At a couple of them, we bumped into each other and talked. What is a WordCamp that you would recommend that might surprise us?
I think my favorite WordCamp this year has been WordCamp Maine, and I think I liked it because it was like this adorable, quaint little town, and there were so many really cool people there, and I felt like you really got to know everyone. I love big WordCamps, and I went to a couple big ones at the start of 2014, with like 600 people, 700 people, and that's really great too, and 4 different tracks. But I think I really like the smaller ones where you can talk to everyone. They had a great speakers dinner, and they had a great after party where it was about talking to people, not necessarily hanging out at a bar. Like it was a nice, quiet venue. I just loved it.
Awesome. How about some of your favorite non-WordCamp events to attend?
Ooh, good. You know what? My favorite conference all year. So my favorite conference all year actually was UserConf, which I went to in I think April of 2014, and it was UserConf is all about supporting people. So if you work in support, if you are helping people fix problems with software or their website or anything, go to that because they tell you how to talk to people, and they have really awesome people from Facebook and Foursquare and really, Wunderlist. Like they have people from all these different awesome, well-known brands and apps and how they take care of everything. So it could be software where how to, get support requests and log them in GitHub and track which ones are the most important and fix them, or it could be other stuff like just how to make clients happy. But it was really well done, and it was like 20-minute talks, which are my favorite length of talk. I think almost every WordCamp presentation can be shortened from 50 down into 30. Just to get the good stuff.
I noticed you didn't say WooConf, which was held for the first time last October.
Yeah, wow, I didn't say that, and I helped select the speakers for that, which was okay. So, would you like to know a secret about that? Yes. I basically selected all the people that I wanted to hear, and I think it worked out well. Like, I wanted to know more about newsletter marketing, so I'm like, hey, we should invite Nathan Barry, and I wanted to know more about like. I talked to Brennan Dunn briefly in the year, but I wanted to hear him do a full talk. So, hey, we should invite Brennan Dunn to talk about how to manage clients and get, be a consultant rather than a freelancer. I loved WooConf, but I think because I helped organize it, I didn't view it as a conference I went to.
Fair enough. But it went well, and it's going to be happening again in 2015?
Yes. Actually, so this isn't official. I can't promise anything, but we may have 2. So
you heard it here first.
Yeah. Newsflash. So we may have 2, one in the States and one somewhere in Europe. So those are our 2 biggest audiences. So we'll see if we can get some more Europe people to the Europe one and more US people to the US, and I think it'll be good.
Okay, we're gonna quote you on that. It'll be good. Okay. Awesome. Thanks for sharing that. That's very exciting. That's very exciting. I can't wait to hear more. What if we wanted to stay on top of this? How would we do so?
Let me see if the old site is still up. It used to be conf.woocommerce.com. and I'm just pulling it up right now. So that is still up, and there is a newsletter sign up on that page. So if you sign up for that newsletter, that's probably the best way of doing it, or signing up for just the general WooThemes newsletter will also, you'll get that news.
Okay, great. All right, so here's another question for you. Tell us a little bit about, and we are getting down to the wire, so I wanted to ask this earlier because I know you've got some good stuff to say, but tell us a little bit about some lifestyle changes you've been making recently to improve your work-life balance.
Cool question. So let me start off with so I took this new role in middle of summer, August or something like that, and I moved in the beginning of July to Denver from Wisconsin, so it was a big move. I don't have family nearby, so two big life changes happened within a month of each other, and I kind of lost my balance where I had no friends because I just moved, and I was so excited about work stuff that I just worked instead of trying to make friends, and I'm finally kind of getting out of that work to death mode and try to find that balance again. And what's been working for me really well for the last month, I'd say, is to say every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday I am working out, or I'm going to yoga, or I'm running, and I guess I needed to find that consistency again. So for me, I had to say every Monday, Wednesday, Friday I am either running or doing yoga, and basically putting in my calendar Monday night, hang out with people, not computers. And so that but it took it's easy for me to fall into working too much. It's easy for that to happen. So I need to put in my calendar, especially when I moved, and I didn't. Especially when you have those big life changes, to put stuff in your calendar, hang out with people, and go to this meetup, non-WordPress meetup, and do those things.
So you've made these changes, and how's it been working out for you?
Good. Really good. Yesterday, I went for an 8-mile run with a friend in Denver's really awesome, by the way. There's 10 minutes outside of town. There's this great park with hills and trees and things. I live downtown, so that's exciting. But I went on an 8-mile run with a friend, so it's been working out pretty good.
8 miles. Okay. So another question.
Mm-hmm.
If Patrick Rauland were a superhero, what would his name and superpowers be?
Oh, so superheroes are so from the Lego game that I recommended in the beginning, you can probably guess that I love superheroes. I'm gonna have to go. So I'm gonna copy an existing one. I'm really sorry. I love Hawkeye because if you need to read the most recent comics, because Hawkeye is just a dude. He has no superpowers, but he fights supervillains with a bow and arrow. And so the first comic starts with him being punched out of a window, falling to the ground 2 stories, and then being in the hospital for 2 months. That's how the comic starts. He got his ass handed to him. Can I say ass? I just said it.
Okay, that's why I was never big on Superman. I was like, he's too perfect.
He is.
Because everything is to the nth degree with this guy. You can't,
You have to have kryptonite.
Bounce off him. Where's the fun? Where's the danger?
Whereas, Hawkeye, if the Hulk punches you once, you're dead. You have to, there is no room for error. So I just love that guy. He's awesome. He's just an average dude fighting supervillains. I like it.
All right, awesome. Okay, so yeah, we're really just about out of time here, so I got to ask kind of our final wrap-up questions. Where in the flesh, in the real world, could people bump into Patrick Rauland this year? What's on your calendar? Meetups, events, conferences? Where are you going?
Boy, so I don't plan that far out in advance. So I'll tell you what I do know. We have a once-a-year Woo trip. So wherever that Woo trip goes, I will be there. Most likely, or possibly, I should say, Thailand. So if you're in the Thailand area, come say hi to us there. There's going to be the WooCommerce conference, which we don't have a location for yet, but possibly Austin, because there's a ton of people there, and it's pretty tech-friendly. So possibly Austin. I'm going to try, there's going to be WordCamp Denver, which I'm organizing. You can definitely meet me there. I'm going to be at IRCE, which is an e-commerce conference, in June, I believe it is, something in Chicago. And if I'm in June, or if I'm in there at that time, I'll try to stop by WordCamp Chicago like I did last year. I loved WordCamp Dallas Fort Worth. I'll try to go back to that. I loved WordCamp San Francisco. I'll try to go back to that. I go to a lot of WordCamps around in the west of the states. So, yeah, hopefully you can meet me at one of those.
Okay. All right. Who do you recommend that we invite on the show in the future?
I think if you liked, I guess right now I'm focusing a lot on, like, I'm just starting to get my life back on track with friends and workouts and I'm letting the book stuff go away. One of my friends, Michael Tieso, I hope I'm pronouncing his name right. He is a travel blogger who happens to work for WooThemes, but he basically runs this awesome travel blogging membership site. And he, I don't know, he has just really cool stories because he lives in different locations all around the world with his partner. So he just has really cool stories. I think he'd be a good guy.
Wow. That's a good suggestion.
I think his travel blogging site is travelblogsuccess.com. I think that's it.
Awesome. That does sound like something Jason should check out. Jason has a travel blog. That's awesome as well.
I'm going to give away a WooThemes secret, but we love travel bloggers, I think, like as employees, because A, we give them a lot of flexibility so they can do that thing, and B, they're just, in general, like, travel bloggers are people that have, like, figured out how to blog and how to make money on their own, and, like, they're just really entrepreneurial or something, so
yeah,
they're awesome.
Cool. All right. Is there anything that we didn't get to cover that maybe we should have? Anything that you want to share with the audience that is pertinent right now, or how they can reach you if you want them to, and why they should?
If you wanted to chat about e-commerce, I'm always fine with it, even if you don't use WordPress or WooCommerce. I love chatting about e-commerce because that helps me do my job. So just hit me up on Twitter, at bftrick, or you can reach me on my website where I have a lot of WordPress tutorials and things on there, and that's speakinginbytes.com.
Awesome. We'll make sure to link to all of that, and be sure to, anybody tuning in, check out Patrick's book. We've got a link already shared on the event on Google+, and we'll have that in our show notes as well. I think that's going to be very valuable to the community. And Patrick, thank you very much for joining us on the show. Really appreciate you stopping by.
Thank you for having me. It's been fun.
Yeah, thanks so much, Patrick.
Thank you, Patrick.